Hi, we're thrilled to bring you this conversation with Paul Crawford and Julie Fowler. You don't have to dig far to find their DNA in so many community-building aspects of the creative economy. Paul is the curator of the Penticton Art Gallery, well known for its diversity and quality of exhibitions. Julie Fowler recently stepped down after more than 2 decades as the executive director of the long-running Island Mountain Arts School in Wells, BC. She founded the BC Music Festivals Collective in 2020. And somewhere in there, she also wrote a historical fiction book. Welcome, Paul Crawford, Julie Fowler. Thank you so much for coming to Tempest and being part of this. Wine with the artistic director, or fuzzy water with the artistic director, always your choice. So, because of who you guys are, and because this wonderful winery has sponsored us in the past, we figured that Maverick was the most appropriate winery, and they're an estate winery, of course, so they grow their own grapes, and So this is beautiful. To you, amazing. Mavericks, who are gracing this community and joining us here at Tempest. So may I?
Thank you very much. Really an honor to be here.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll pour more later.
Oh, that's all perfect.
Nice. So, as I started to research, first of all, cheers.
Yeah, toast.
Cheers.
Toast to all the amazing stuff you're doing.
And
Thank
you.
Cheers.
Maverick, no doubt. Like, you go to research Paul Crawford and Julie. It's like, like, oh, wow. So, let's start with Arts Wells. So yeah. Arts Wells, the two of you co-founded it, or was it did you found it?
It's a complicated story. It's really Julie's baby, but I was doing a festival in Wells prior to that called the Women at Play Festival, and it was a 60-second performance festival. And so I had been living in Wells since 1995 and was running that and tried to start my own art museum there in 1999, 2000, and ran a venue and started using art, music and theater and other things to get people in. It was sort of like the hook to get people into an art gallery and look at art when they're in between songs or whatever. They sort of idly look at the stuff on the wall. So I was running that, and then Julie came up. I think it was 2002 was the first time, or.
Well, I moved to Wells in 2003, but we already kind of had the idea for the festival and even the name. Island Mountain Arts, which is the umbrella organization that we ran the Arts Wells Festival under, and it had been running in Wells since 1977. So there was a long history that had been building with the arts in that community. I actually grew up in Vancouver also. I had never really gone much past Hope. It's like, oh, what's up there? The Fred Wells had built a beautiful community hall, this theater, school, a hospital, like all the housing, and many of these places were underutilized or falling into disrepair, and the arts kind of came in and so in terms of a space, when I saw it, the idea of a festival there and the fact that there was already an arts organization and community, it all started clicking.
One of the neat things about Fred Wells, so when he built the town and designed it, it was really about building community. And so if you had two people who were equally skilled at a job, and one had a family or was able to play an instrument or had another creative outlet that would help build community, you would hire that person over the equally talented other individual, because he saw the value of art and community and culture in terms of social cohesion and everything else, and just in a mining camp too, it kind of mellow people out, right? Give people an outlet to do stuff. So that was it was sort of built with culture and art as being a part of the ethos of the community in the 1930s when he developed laid out the whole town, all that. So that kind of thing has always been a part of an undercurrent of the whole community and stuff. So it's been kind of neat. And then all these hippies moved there in the 70s and created this arts organization because they wanted to learn how to do art. And then over the years, every decade, there seems to be a subsequent wave of individuals that come in who want to do something else. And so, in the early 2000s, Julie and her crew from Montreal showed up. And
Why do festivals mean so much? Because we're going to get to a new festival that you're creating.
Festivals have sort of become the ceremonies and theaters like this in a church have become the new churches, you know, like how do we need those ways to gather in community, and we've lost a lot of those ways. And most cultures all over the planet, it just goes without saying that they have these events and things that bring community together, and they celebrate together, and we've really lost many of those things.
And also the reverence for the arts, right, and the artists and stuff like that's a huge part of the community and everything else. And yeah, to me, it's always been about just engagement and on a level. But you never see a miserable person at a festival, right? You know, you go around and you look at all the people that are there, and just how happy they are. Why has that now become the exception and not the norm? Like, to me, it just boggles my mind. But someone else could have a very different experience. You know, bringing Bob Ross to the art gallery was, you know, amazing to see people brought to tears looking at Bob Ross's paintings. And who am I to tell them that, you know, that's high art or it's kitsch or it's this? It's, if it brings you to tears, and that's fantastic. And you know, sure, he should totally be in art history, right? He should be. He is part of our visual culture. You can't deny it, you know. And I think for me, and I think for both of us too, is just trying to give people that entry into having a creative experience and get in touch with themselves.
How to make it accessible, how to allow people to have a positive experience of it and really understand why it's so valuable. Because if you have that experience, then you're more likely to be like, oh yeah, like I just went and saw this incredible music and it moved me, and
create your own dialogue about it, right? That you can own and actually. We feel the same way. I feel very passionate about Shakespeare in that way, and that how academics have actually kind of taken it away from the body artists that just want it to be as sexy and naughty and dirty as it's supposed to be, because that's what it was. You know, you know, it had, of course, it has high concepts and morals to it, but you know, it's not uphill, right? It's a little more, it should be more accessible to people that can watch it and go, I just understood that. You know, I understood and I was able to relate to it. So yeah, I agree with that. So you're curating such a span of different artists and pieces of art, and having the courage to do so, it's really quite awesome.
Oh, thank you. I guess I don't get perspective, so it's nice to know that, you know, that what I've got the privilege to be able to do in the forum and the outlet that I have to do it on makes a difference. You know, at the end of the day, you just hope that you do make a difference, right? And you engage in meaningful conversations in the community, you know. And I don't have to, as I tell people, I don't have to like everything that I do. I just need to stand behind it, right? And so I just need to, you know, and I learn from every show, and it's like it's a constant growth for myself, and hopefully it confronts people with, you know, challenging things from time to time that causes them to question their own worldview and all that, and I guess both with the gallery and with our festival, like, we've never had the luxury of a lot of resources in terms of financial resources and stuff, and so, you know, with the festival, it was all about building community, and the community supported itself, and it probably took us 6 years before we had more paid people than we had artists and volunteers, you know, maybe 6 years, maybe more. And, you know, in that moment that it changed was a real odd shift, you know. It was like, oh, wow, I walk around.
There was people that we didn't actually recognize. It's like, oh, there's people we don't know that have come this year. Like,
let's talk a little bit about Ignite the Arts and what's next.
Essentially, it sounds far more ambitious than what it is. Like, it is.
Says Paul Crawford.
Well, not to underplay it, but a lot of the stuff already was existing, right? It was just trying to find a way. Like, every March, we would do an exhibition opening or an exhibition in the gallery that would sort of be on a different take of things. So it would be more about a community engagement. It wouldn't be just a staid kind of paintings on a wall type of thing. It was a way to get people engaged. So I think the first year that we partnered up with was with SOIX and did a whole show called Welcome Home, and pairing up recent immigrants with local artists to create works of art that would talk about their experience. And then that was so successful, and I think they started the One World Festival that year as an accompaniment to that. And so just looking at ways that we can engage a community in some conversations that are contemporary to what's happening in our community today. And then last year, Alexander Goodall and Daniel Savage approached me. I had done a show previously of Alexandra, and said they had this whole installation piece, and, you know, would I write a grant? And I'm like, you know what, I'd love to, why don't we feature it here open here in Penticton before you start applying to go elsewhere with it. And then it just snowballed into this crazy big thing. But we want to act as an umbrella organization and gather up what everybody's got to offer and promote it as, here's an entire buffet of activities you can do over this week that you get in touch with your creativity, whether for kids or adults, it didn't really matter, but we'll promote them all. So we'll reach out to every organization, every individual. If you're an artist in a studio and you're doing workshops, let's promote it. Let's show a unified force, but also just show the depth and the breadth of our creative community and the creative economy in Penticton. One of the beautiful things about a festival is the power of a wristband and the license it gives you to engage in other people who normally you would never talk with otherwise, right? So if you see someone coming out of a venue because they have that wristband, you have an opportunity to talk to them that you wouldn't otherwise do so, right?
A meaningful reason to engage.
Yeah.
Hey.
We could really create something pretty spectacular, like something meaningful that might actually create critical mass that would encourage others to step up and do something, right?
There's just something really magical to building something as opposed to trying to, get included into something that's already been built. It's exhausting, right? I know it's not easy, but at least you've got a seat at the table. It feels exciting to be a part of the artistic community here that has such a long history. And also is brand new, and it doesn't feel impenetrable. It feels like you can be part of it and be active within it. So
like higher walls and taller fences doesn't help build community. We're increasingly becoming more isolated. We're becoming a much more regional sort of arts community as it is, and it's just we gotta turn it around. And I think with COVID and the isolation has brought it on, it's got people to realize just how valuable art and culture is to our lives, and it's got to be more than just Netflix, right? It's sort of like we've seen, like I think anecdotally, I know a lot of artists have sold more artwork than they've had forever, right? And it's like, well, you're tired of looking at a blank wall, or that IKEA poster doesn't quite wash after a while, right? It's just a flat, lifeless thing. But a painting with texture on it, when the sun changes it moves with you, right? And music is just like the most powerful. It's the one thing that there's not a person alive in the world whose life isn't touched by it, doesn't have a soundtrack attached to it, right? And
I'm hoping, all of us, and we've had this conversation a lot, it's like when you are confronted with something as dramatic as COVID has been and isolating as it's been, will that help? Can you reignite? Can you bounce off of an experience that dramatic and change the platform, change how people are looking at art? I don't know. I hope so.
All we can do is hope, right? Like all we can do is try, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, right? But
we've certainly felt it in the shows. The shows have been exuberant. people are so grateful, not a peep about price. Or just upset if they can't get in. Which that's a very good problem to
and
have.
we've been there, so we know it. Just last Friday, actually. So what you're doing here and providing, voice, a platform for new voices to be heard, and everything else is incredible.
Let me just say that I haven't finished this yet, but I've read enough to know I want to finish it, which is so inspiring. It's so inspiring that this is the Grand Dames of the Caribou. It's so inspiring that you thought the book was going to be about one thing, and then you had this visitation. So speak about that a little bit.
Sure. So the woman on the cover of the book is Vivian Cowan, and I originally set out to write a book about her daughter, Sonia Cornwall. I didn't know really about Vivian, and as the book starts out, I meet Sonia by going to her memorial service, and I just started dating Paul. So the book is creative nonfiction, and it's the story of me going to research the lives of these women artists who were working kind of in the 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way to when the memorial service was, and I was living in Wells, and Paul was down in Grand Forks at the time, running the Grand Forks Art Gallery, so it's kind of like we went on a date to Sonia Cornwall's funeral. And
romantic.
Yeah.
Well done.
we met, we collided there, and then it was this amazing experience it is a really interesting place to learn about someone, because you hear stories of their life, and in this case they also had her paintings lining the walls of the 150-mile community hall. And so I learned a lot about Sonia Cornwall, and it made me want to learn more. And I was right at the time, or soon after, where I was coming up with an idea for my master's thesis in creative writing, and it all kind of just coalesced. And my background is art history, and wanting to kind of take a different approach to art history, like I was talking about, like a more storytelling approach to make art more accessible rather than talk about it in kind of a more theory-based way. And so it all fit together, and of course it was in the area of the Caribou that I was also working, so being able to shed more light on this beautiful, rich history of art that had happened in the Caribou that wasn't very well documented. And so Sonia was who I set out to learn about, and then it started becoming more and more clear that the story was actually her mother.
So great.
And just the materials that became available to me, like Joseph Plaskett, who's passed on now, I had the great honor of being able to interview. He was in his 90s at the time, and he had met the mother, Vivian Cowan, at the Banff School in the 40s, and they had become friends, and he would come to the ranch and paint, and as did others like A.Y. Jackson. And Joseph Plaskett, he was great at keeping his archives, and he had kept every letter he had ever received from Vivian, and he gave them to me. This incredible, rich, archive of letters, and that was amazing to have, like 200 pages of letters from this woman, Vivian, and then as I kept digging, there was more at the BC archives, and then the funny part was actually, like, I'd already done my thesis had already gone in, and then it was months later that I got the opportunity to publish, and so it was about 2 weeks away from my final version having to go to the publisher, and I was doing one last trip up to see the family, and so I was doing a trip up there to just do a final kind of research trip, and the daughter, Mabel, says, "Oh, and maybe you'd like to look at this," and she puts out this box, and it was like a box this deep, and it was Vivian Cowan's autobiography that she had written. And I knew that she was writing an autobiography because she alluded to it in letters and things, but the family had never produced it for me, and I kind of didn't ask, and I wasn't sure why they didn't, but part of me, like, I think they kind of had the attitude, oh, that was just Granny, and thought maybe, she sometimes would, I don't know, exaggerate some of the stories from her life, or who knows what. And so that was quite a crazy moment, because suddenly I had, in her own words, and then on top of this manuscript was a letter from a publisher that said, it was from back in the 80s when she had put it forward. It was like, "Thank you very much, but no, we're not interested. It needs too much editing. Have a nice day." And I was like, okay, this was a woman who wanted her story out there, and I really felt like these moments and this information came to me kind of from beyond. She was helping me to get this story told that she had tried to put out there herself.
I love that.
And it definitely made me feel very confident about putting the story out, because of course writing anything nonfiction and about a family that's not my family, even if it was my family, that also is, I know any writer of nonfiction, and when you're writing about other people's lives, there's sort of ethical questions. They're like, am I representing them properly? Do they want their story out there? Is all these kinds of things. And I really felt like, okay, this is a story that needs to be out there, and Vivian would want it out there. She tried to get it out there, and she couldn't get it out there. So
I love that so much. I mean, and another thing I was thinking as I was reading it was, I've spent a fair amount of time in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we're so celebrate Georgia O'Keeffe and that whole all of her, and there's books and books and books and books and books and books and retrospectives, museum. I was like, oh, it is so refreshing to read about the talent in here, like right here, not you know, not always think, well, all the really great things happen in the United States or beyond, you know, but there's some really, and you said it so beautifully, there's some of the simplicity, these beautiful paintings on the wall. There's fold out tables and styrofoam, you know, like, and no pretense. But the art was at the essence of who these people were. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Really great. Well, I hope you write more, and I hope you both continue to, as energetically as I can't even imagine how much energy you guys exude, but contribute to the community and support the arts and elevate the arts and do what you do.
You know, for me, the greatest gift of it all, is you probably have, is connecting people, right? And it's sort of like, if I think of what are my transferable assets, well, I certainly wish I had a trade or something, but the greatest thing that I've had, and gift I've had in my life, is just meeting a lot of amazing people. And if you can take person A and person B and put them together and see something amazing happen, then
And collecting and seeing a lot of great art here
well,
today.
so blessed to have you here, and it's been really exciting to see all that you brought to the community and all that too. And certainly, you know, you're not, you're stepping up and putting your own resources on the line and all that, and it's been a real breath of fresh air. And like I said, it's so wonderful to hear the impact that you made in the community and people who really connect to this venue and the work that you do here, and just how important it is for so many people. And you know, and you don't always get to hear that, but it's been really tremendous. And I'm sorry it's taken us so long to connect in a meaningful way and have a conversation.
Well, we filmed our first.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Well, cheers again.
Cheers.
Yeah.